Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to strike the last word. In honor of our late colleague, Mr. Cummings, I must speak in support of H.R. 3, and I concur with my colleague, Ms. Davis, that the bill should be named in his honor. As most of us know, Mr. Cummings was a fierce advocate for the cause of lowering the price of prescription drugs. In the early days of this administration, Mr. Cummings was determined to find common ground and felt that the price of drugs was an area where we could find bipartisan consensus. I hope that in his honor, this committee will find it possible to accomplish what Mr. Cummings so wanted to see happen. When I hear my colleagues across the aisle attack H.R. 3 as not being a bipartisan work product, I just want to ask them, where is your work on prescription drug pricing from the years that you had the majority in the House, the Senate, and the White House? Non-existent. Stop protecting rich corporate executives and start thinking about your constituents. The days of putting profits over people must come to an end. When drug companies try to justify the exploding prices of prescription drugs, they often hide behind their fiduciary duty to make profits for their shareholders. But as members of Congress, we have a much more important shareholder, the most important one of all, the American people. And just so that we are clear, there is no justification for the outrageous drug prices that exist in the wealthiest nation in the world. Drug companies' devotion to the dollar ignores the fact that the American people have subsidized their industry for years. 75% of all drugs are developed in part by American taxpayer support, and drug company executives reap the benefits. And while these companies often spend more on marketing, lobbying, and sales than they do on research and development, the National Institutes of Health have devoted $900 billion in basic and applied research to support the development of new drugs. The fact that Americans help fund the development of prescription drugs, but spend more on these drugs than anywhere else in the world isn't just unfair, it is immoral. Let me be perfectly clear. My statement is not intended to be a condemnation of the scientists and the employees of these companies. I am talking about the executives and the lobbyists who have become rich on the backs of our citizens. One vial of insulin in America should not cost 10 times what it costs in Canada. People like my constituents, Danielle Thrapp and her son Brandon, and Mitchell Lennett and his daughter Carly, age 14, all of whom live in my district, should not have to worry about the price of insulin. Mitchell Lennett was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at a very young age, and now his 14-year-old daughter Carly, who was also diagnosed at a young age, also struggles with the disease. Mitchell's greatest concern is what happens to his daughter Carly when she turns 26 and is no longer eligible for his health insurance. People are dying because our system has failed them. Congress has failed them. That's why this bill is so important. H.R. 3 establishes a fair price negotiation program through which the Secretary of HHS can negotiate lower drug prices for the highest cost prescription drugs, including insulin, something other countries with far lower drug prices have long been able to do. It also requires drug companies to pay a rebate to the Medicare Trust Fund for any price increases that exceed inflation as measured by the CPI for urban consumers. And the bill provides long-needed reforms by capping out-of-pocket costs for Medicare beneficiaries. In short, this bill will make prescription drugs more affordable. Preliminary estimates from the Congressional Budget Office suggest that H.R. 3 will lower prices, increase the use and availability of prescription drugs, and improve people's health and well-being. And while saving lives should be considered priceless, the CBO's preliminary score suggests that this bill will also reduce federal direct spending for Medicare by $345 billion from 2023 to 2029. On October 25th, 2018, even President Trump complained about American drug prices by saying, "This happens because the government pays whatever price the drug companies set without any negotiation whatsoever." Even with negotiation, Drug companies will make more money in the United States than anywhere else in the world, and therefore will continue to develop and sell their drugs here. I call on my colleagues to put politics aside, ignore the lobbyists, and pass this bill out of committee. Let's get this done.